Leonardo da Vinci went home with Francis I, happy to accept the young king's invitation. Leonardo was weary. He had gone from Florence to Rome, but there Michelangelo, Raphael, and other younger artists were in high favor, and there was little for him to do. From Rome he had gone to Bologna, where he met some of the French officers he had known in Milan. A small amusing invention which he had made caught the fancy of the young king, a mechanical lion that dropped a shower of fleurs-de-lis at his royal feet. A devoted young pupil went with Leonardo to France. The king installed them in a small manor connected by a ramp with the castle of Amboise. There Leonardo lived the last 3 years of his life, dying at Easter time in 1519. His Mona Lisa, probably the most celebrated portrait in the world, which the painter took with him, now hangs in the Louvre. That and other paintings which Francis I purchased in Italy started the collection for the largest art museum in the world in Paris. On January 23, 1516, Ferdinand of Aragon died suddenly on a hunting trip. His death threw Spain into a turmoil and the Netherlands into a whirl of excitement. Who should have the crown? Charles or his mother Juana? Juana was locked up, said to be insane, yet despite that fact, the Spanish nobles insisted she was the rightful queen. In the Netherlands, Charles was proclaimed king just as soon as word came of his grandfather's death. The Duke of Chevreuse saw to that. He immediately began to plan which Flemish noblemen should be on Charles's council and hold the key positions in the new Spanish government, selling many of them to the highest bidder. Imagine the fury caused among the members of the Cortes when word of that proclamation and high-handed performance reached Spain. Cardinal Ximenes, the Archbishop of Toledo, was then the regent. The leading churchman in Spain, he was a true statesman, incorruptible and thoroughly good. Although he was old, in his 80th year, and very frail, he was still alert and a power in the land. The only solution he saw was for Charles to come to Spain, appear before the Cortes, and have the matter settled. He also wrote Charles begging him to follow the advice of his grandmother Isabella and take only Spaniards into his council. The cardinal did not know, though he may have surmised, that Charles did not make his own decisions, but was completely under the influence of his Flemish tutor. It was September 1517 before King Charles reached Spain with his huge Flemish delegation headed by the Duke of Chevreuse. The voyage was one of those long, stormy ones which finally ended near the small port of Tazones. As soon as the cardinal heard that Charles was in Spain, the old statesman, frail as he was, set out to meet him. Riding in a heated litter, with a ball of hot metal in his hands, his legs encased in fur, he looked, his gesture told him, like an old greyhound wrapped in wool. It was the firm determination of the old statesman to try to meet young Charles before he was presented to the Cortes. The Duke of Chevreuse was just as firmly determined to prevent that meeting. He kept delaying Charles' journey inland over the mountain roads on one excuse or another, until the old cardinal became exhausted, was taken ill on the way to meet them, and died. It was then simple for the Duke to carry out the plan he had for Charles. This was a meeting with his mother, the Queen, in order that before Charles was presented to the Cortes, Juana herself should have resigned the throne in favor of her son. Eleanor, Charles's sister, who was 19 and had come with him to Spain, also went with them to visit their mother in the castle of Tordesillas. It was a dark, cold, dismal day in December, as brother and sister stood waiting in that dreadful, gloomy corridor outside the closed door of their mother's room. The Duke of Chevreuse had gone in first. Juana had known the Duke well in Brussels, since he had been one of Philip's council. but she gave no sign of recognition as he entered. She sat there alone in the half-light, her hair disheveled, her gown rumpled. The Duke asked her if she were well, and said that it was a pleasure to see her again. His tone was kind, and she responded enough to ask what news he brought from the Netherlands, and if her children were well. "Well, indeed, madam," he answered. "And, in truth, madam, in my opinion, better children could not be found. So virtuous are they, so wise, and so well educated. Would you care to see them?" Even as he spoke, he had the door open to reveal the two standing on the threshold. Charles stepped in and made a deep bow. Eleanor, following him, made an even deeper bow. Charles took another step or two forward and recited his speech. "Madam, we, your humble and dutiful children, are most joyful to see you, thanks to God, in good health, and for a long time we have been desirous to do you reverence and offer our testimony of honor, obedience, and respect." Juana merely nodded her head and sat for some moments gazing at her two children. It had been so many years since she had seen them. Finally, she leaned forward and took their hands. "But are you really my children?" she said. "How you have grown in so little time. Welcome, and heaven be praised. What troubles you must have had in coming so far. Surely you must be tired. Since it is late, you best seek some rest until tomorrow." The brother and sister took their leave, bowing their way out. The Duke of Chevreuse stayed on to accomplish his purpose, introducing witnesses who could testify that Juana had signed over her throne to Charles. He began by saying, "How fortunate you are as queen to have so capable an heir as your son Charles. Even now, Charles is ready and able to take the burden off your shoulders, if you wish him to." "Yes," said Juana. "Let Charles take over." With those few words, the purpose of the visit was accomplished. Charles could now proceed to Valladolid, appear before Cortes, and be proclaimed king in his own right, King Charles I. There was no chance that silent Charles, with his stumbling speech, would make a favorable impression on the Spanish nobles. Though the Cortes gave him a chilly reception, they granted him the right to rule, but did so grudgingly, and only for the time being, saying that if at any time our Lord in his mercy should restore her reason to the most serene Queen Doña Juana, his mother, the king shall desist from the governance of Castile. So Charles was proclaimed king, but at a fatal price to his mother. Only so long as Juana was thought to be mad could Charles rule. After the proclamation, the whole Spanish council was immediately discharged and replaced by Flemish noblemen. The Duke of Chevreuse took over the treasury, and his 16-year-old nephew replaced the cardinal as Archbishop of Toledo. Charles, who was very serious and methodical, kept a careful record of all that happened.